All right. Lots of announcements. Oh, yeah. That's one I got to remember. I got Christine. And yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't I let you guys do your announcement, and then I'll jump into these. Are you ready? Okay.
You're crafty. Mine's on the wall.
Where?
On the picture.
Oh, are you wearing heels to make yourself taller? Shut up and go away. Okay, so
Step that way so they can see you. There you go.
Friday, October 15th?
Is that the third Friday
Yeah,
of October?
the third
Okay.
Friday of the month. We're going to do ladies' night. We're going to do a craft night. So there's a couple of different things that you have the options for. There's the gnome that Dawn has up there. And then we also have little wreaths that you can make. You can make fall wreaths for Thanksgiving, whatever. You can make Christmas wreaths. Most of the stores already have their Christmas crafts out. So it's going to be 7 o'clock.
6:30.
6:30 on Thursday night and
Friday.
Friday night. Sorry.
So that's why I'm not thinking that it's. I think it's like. It's the third Friday.
Yeah. 'cause
So
it's
I'm not
normally-
sure it's the 15th.
Normally Thursdays.
Yeah. It's on Friday because that way everybody doesn't have to be to work the next week.
We'll have our act together by then, I promise. Okay.
Yes.
So
We
anyway,
even know the date.
we can either go get the crafts if you want to sign up, if you want a Christmas craft, if you want a fall craft, whatever you guys want. Just get a sign up and we can go get that for you. We'll get the flowers and we'll
And
provide.
the gnome, you can make any direction you want to go with him.
Yes.
He can be neutral. He can be Thanksgiving. He can be Christmas. He can be fall. He can be a gnome.
And that,
gnome's sake.
All right. I am grateful that Tim and Chris took over, and I appreciate the work they did. I appreciate those that kept things going while I was away. It was an interesting trip for me. Traveling is. I'm not big into traveling anymore, but I'm the driver. My wife tells me that that's my purpose in life, is to drive her around and open jars. And but the grandkids had a blast, and so did Susan. And my problem is I always analyze everything. So while everybody else is just letting things go, I'm always studying. I can't help it. It's a disease, I guess. But man, I'll tell you what, there are a lot of selfish, angry, frustrated people out there. I don't know about you, but I mean, I hit Tennessee and North Carolina, and you don't dare drive the speed limit. It's 80 or 90. And the way they treat each other is just, I mean, it's like, do you not understand you can kill that person doing what you're doing? The trucks, I watch trucks get into fights on the highway, trucks, semis. And I'm watching all this and I'm like, this is nuts. There's just so much selfishness going on out there. And I'm not trying to make you depressed, actually. I mean, I enjoyed watching, my kids and stuff. But, and God's creation, that was cool. Because I was in the Smoky Mountains and I went to the Vanderbilt house but my reason for telling you this is that you need to keep praying for the people in this nation. I mean, it's global now, but there's a lot going on that's just upside down. Speaking of that, there is a Missouri Prayer Fest October 2nd. That's pretty close. It's at the Capitol. And there's going to be a lot of people there. Brian Seitz is going to be there. I knew Brian from years ago before he went into politics. But there's flyers for it at the back if you're interested in it. And there's a website you can go to. Okay. The other thing is on October 9th, Chris, I know, signed up for it. I signed up for it. They're having in Hollister what they call a Grape Fest, and they need people to help set things up and break things down and clean tables, whatever. And I'm thinking, why not go hang out, be a part, help. I personally am going to try and get involved in more of the events that go on in the community now with the Chamber of Commerce and stuff, just simply because it's an opportunity to go serve people that wouldn't set foot in a church. So I think it's a good thing. It'll be good for me more than anything. So don't forget that. And if you're not signed up, you ought to sign up. They'll give you a free shirt, I think, is what they give you. Also, October 3rd, which is coming up, Family Feast, where we get together and eat together. It's always an opportunity for you to invite friends and family simply so we can show them hospitality. That's one thing that I want to emphasize more in the ministry here. Martin's going to check for us to see if that other carpet sample will work in this half. We've got free carpet is what we have that was given to us, which is wonderful. It's never been used. This stuff we have here was used when we got it, and it needs to go. Christine and Kelly, they're working on rebranding. They're working on figuring out how we're going to do the windows. We ran into a little glitch with it in the pricing, but we're working on resetting our brand up and getting us fired up again. It's almost like we're doing a church restart. The COVID thing, though, has done this to churches all across this nation. It's really an issue, what has happened with the demeanor of a lot of Christians. They've lost inspiration. They've lost sight of their goals. It's really, a lot of pastors are hurting right now because of it. They almost don't know what to do to get people to recognize the necessity of being part of a family of believers. It's really an interesting scenario. The cool thing about it, and we'll get into it today, I'm going to be in Daniel 2. God is absolutely involved in all of it. That's the one thing you need to remember. Something I found interesting before we start is I had a conversation with a friend of mine who is not a Christian. He does not believe that Jesus is the Messiah. He actually follows, I believe it's the Lakota spiritual belief structure. He's American Indians. And we have interesting conversations. Yesterday, he actually said something that I found was very interesting. It's that there are certain truths that wherever it comes from, it's still the truth, even if it may be coming from something that is not in line with what we believe as a whole. But he said that there are 7 things that are principles that his belief structure has. And I thought this was good. Compassion, generosity, honor / truth, hospitality, which is the act of humility, respect, prayer, and wisdom. And he said, a person reflects those thoughts and those patterns. A person will demonstrate or reflect how much those things have taken hold of them. I could have taken him to multiple Bible verses that, but in his case, it was their belief as Indians. And I thought about it in reference to the trip I took. And that's the missing elements in our society. There is, we have become so selfish and self-centered that, for instance, when I was driving, I'll give you a classic example. This semi was moving no slower than 80 miles an hour, and he shoved the semi between 2 vehicles very rapidly. I mean, it was, and we're talking a distance of probably where I'm standing in those chairs right there, just threw the thing in there. And I'm watching all these people, and I'm the just lack of respect and concern for the people around them, but literally putting everybody at risk for what? But if you look around, you've got people fighting on airplanes now. I grew up, that never happened. I grew up in the day and age where you could carry a gun in the back window of your truck and it was no big deal. You took a pocket knife to school, no big deal, because nobody was doing these things they're doing now. That's why I look at this and say, how can anybody say things are getting better? They're not. Morality's in the toilet in this nation. And the disrespect of people's lives and their views, and I mean, just the utter disregard. And if you don't line up with me, then you're bad, no good, and I don't like you, so I'm going to let you know that. That's all in play now. Don't be one of those people. So I made the choice when I was driving, and I did good. I asked my wife, I said, how'd I do? Because my tendency and my nature has been, I've told you in the past, I love to fight, used to. And I was nice. I drove nice. When I started my trip, I realized I really had some bad habits. As a matter of fact, the vacation for me was God showing me that I have developed some bad habits that you normally wouldn't see until you step out of the picture. And I would be willing to argue that a lot of you have bad habits you don't even see anymore. You've just gotten used to them. And you don't realize that, no, wait a minute, that isn't Christ-like. That isn't how I should be thinking or acting. You know, and I noticed that on the trip, the best thing I could do when I was out there, because I like people a lot. I just don't like to be surrounded by people. This is fine because you're out there. But I just made it a point, and I noticed in myself that I needed to be kind. So I started looking for opportunities to be kind. I had these two older ladies that couldn't see well, and I carried this little flashlight with me, and I helped them see stuff, you know, as they were going through. It was fun. I enjoyed being nice. I mean, so that's not the sermon. I just wanted to throw that out there because I've been making a lot of observations. My prayer for this church and for the people that I know is that they remember what it is to live, because you've been conditioned to think only in terms of trying to stay alive. You need to remember how it is to just simply live. Live. I literally had people that wouldn't let me get on the elevator with them because they were terrified. Terrified. Of what? You drive so dangerous and you're afraid of COVID? I jokingly got on one elevator with some people. I jokingly said to them, you realize that COVID's not going to kill me. It's these masks that are going to kill me. So live and be people that are positive influences. That's where we're going today. We're going to be in Daniel chapter 2. I am not going to give you all the technical theological stuff that's in Daniel 2. We could do that. We could go into a deep, deep theological study of the statue. I'm not going there. I simply want you to recognize these 4 young guys that had their whole world turned upside down. They were taken into a country that was not their own. Total ideas, thoughts, religion, attitudes, everything was different than what they grew up with. Like I told you in the previous sermon when I did Daniel 1, these young boys literally had their wives taken from them because if you were Jewish, you were betrothed at an early age. So they lost their wives, they lost their parents. They were forced to learn a new language, actually more than one language. They were forced to serve the king, knowing good and well that at any point in time that king could kill them with no problem at all. They were in a serious crisis. Most people, when they think of the story of Daniel, don't think about that. They think, oh, Daniel in the lion's den and blah, blah. No, you need to understand. These guys' lives were turned totally upside down, no different than what's going on in your world right now, except for one thing. Theirs were high-risk scenarios. I mean, it was just like that. You're gone if the king wanted it that way. And he didn't kill you nicely. That's, it wasn't, hey, I'll just kill you quickly. No, it was brutal. You'll see in the text. They would tear you apart. Now, I don't know what that feels like to have my arms and legs torn off, but that's what they did. So you've got to keep in mind when we're looking at these 4 young boys, these teenagers, and they're, like I said last time, their convictions dominating their whole existence. You can't forget that thought. Because I'm thinking the problem with most Christians right now is they're losing their convictions. They are settling into lifestyles and patterns of thinking that are not conducive and healthy. They are not worshiping as they should be. Instead, they are fretting over everything that's upside down and wrong. I know you're doing that. I've been struggling. Everybody's struggling with that. But these guys are a great example of how to live in a society that hates you for what you believe. These guys are a great example of how to fit in and yet remain in their convictions and their beliefs. Yet they functioned in a society that wanted nothing to do with what they believed. You're in a society like that right now, just so you know. It's hard for Americans to understand that that's where we are, but it is. They want your God gone, or at least muted, to where they don't have to be convicted. One of the things you need to remember about Jesus is Jesus, believe it or not, as kind and loving and good as he was in their faces all the time, and they hated him for the fact that he was telling them they were wrong. As a Christian, if you speak up and say to the world, what you are doing is wrong, they will hate you for it like they hated him for it. That's the world you live in now. And the only way you're going to survive this is if your convictions are solid and intact. Be willing to stand for what you know is true and stop cowering under their threats. Be effective. Don't be afraid. Be effective. If it's wrong, it's wrong. It's like the story, The King Has No Clothes. I love that story, that children's story. Everybody's going, oh, the king looks great. Everything's great. You're listening to your media right now tell you that the evacuation from Afghanistan was great, that there's nothing wrong anywhere. Everything's okay. Listen to them. It's coming out of your government. No, the king has no clothes, period. And I'm not picking on any one individual. I'm just saying, look, we have a crisis that is a morality crisis in this land. And it's serious. It is serious. This is not a political statement. This is a fact. And when the Christians start breaking down under the pressure of it and start surrendering their convictions and becoming like the people around them, you've got an even more serious problem. There was more than 4 boys taken into captivity into Babylon. But those 4 stood out and were respected by the society they were in and hated by people in the society that we're in because they made the stands they made. And you'll see it as we go through Daniel. Take me to Daniel chapter 2, please, Alan. Obviously, I've made it pretty clear they're desperate. They're in a hard spot. Now, at this point in time, they very well may still be in their 3-year period of training when this happened. If you go look at the actual dates when Nebuchadnezzar came in, when Jerusalem, when the Jewish people were taken captive, these 3 boys still may be in their training period. That's why they're not there, more than likely, when the king calls his wise men. In the 2nd year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. His spirit was troubled and his sleep left him. Then the king commanded that the magicians, the enchanters, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans be summoned to tell the king his dreams. Just so you know, the Chaldeans had what was called, and they have these, they were like dream books. What it was is they would have a list of things. So whatever your dream was, they would go look in the book and say, okay, based on what we have, this is what that dream was telling you, what the gods were telling you. It was believed in this society that if you dreamed dreams and didn't remember them, that the gods were mad at you. And in the case of Nebuchadnezzar, we don't know for sure, but it very well may be that he did not even remember his dream, and that's why he was so frustrated. He was dreaming repetitively this dream, and it was giving him issues. And just a side note for you, because I know people don't understand this. God himself will work within a society based on how that society functions. So if God does that, Satan will too. So in this society, dreams were a big part of how they thought and believed. So there were dreams occurring. They did have meaning. So it's real. But you need to remember that God will work in, like for instance, Abraham, I've told you before, God didn't have to cut that bull in half and pass through the blood of the bull. He didn't have to do that when he made his covenant to Abraham. But he did it because in that culture, that was a covenant statement. So God will accommodate your time period. He does it with us even. It's really interesting. You want to have a fun study, go look at how God will work out his plan within the arena of how you are thinking and functioning in a society. But they have books. So the Chaldeans, being summoned to tell the king his dreams. So they came in and stood before the king. Next. And the king said to them, I had a dream and my spirit is troubled to know the dream. Then the Chaldeans said to the king in Aramaic, this is important. Number one, Daniel shifts in his writing from Hebrew to Aramaic. And one of the reasons they believe he did that is that language, Aramaic, was used in business and in government dealings. So what he's getting ready to talk about when he does interpret the dream for the king is nations, the world's nations. So to speak Aramaic is Daniel actually moving into the arena of this is government that I'm going to be discussing. So boom, it's Aramaic now. And that's the reason why they believe he did it. O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, the word from me is firm, which means, of course, not movable. If you do not make known to me the dream and its interpretation, you shall be torn limb from limb, and your houses shall be laid ruins. By the way, laying their house in ruins, what they would do is they would destroy your whole existence, and in many cases, turn your location of where your home was into a public restroom. Isn't that interesting? They really would do that. Another thing you might want to know about this, just a side note, these guys that are in his presence right now are the older men that were working for the government before Nebuchadnezzar stepped into power. They're dominantly the older men. The younger men are not heavily present. It very well may be that over time, for all we know, Nebuchadnezzar's just like wanting to clean house, who knows. But there definitely is a major change that has occurred in the moment. But if you show the dream and its interpretation, you will receive from me gift and rewards and great honor. Therefore, show me the dream and its interpretation. They answered a second time and said, let the king tell his servants the dream, and we shall show its interpretation. The king answered and said, I know with certainty that you are trying to gain time. He was right. Actually, what they were doing, and this is really kind of smart, they're playing it off as much as they can, hoping that it's going to just basically drop, or he's going to tell them the dream. And he's calling them out, and he's saying, no, I'm not playing into this. I know what you're doing. You're stalling me, hoping that somehow this is going to go away. The king answered, okay, if you do not make the dream known to me, there is but one sentence for you. You have agreed to speak lying and corrupt words before me till the times change. I want you to catch this. This has never gone away. You have counselors and government people all the time who will lie. They will tell you whatever they need to tell you until the time changes. It moves on, and you now forget about it. So if I can talk to you or get to a point that I just throw out loose words and never give an answer, eventually you'll forget about it and we'll move on to another topic and another subject. That's what your government's doing all the time right now, by the way. It's just a play of words to where you finally just go, oh, well, or an over accentuating of a thought to where you don't think about anything else but that one thing because there's other things happening they don't want you to see happening or pay attention to. They're doing this now. It's never changed. This has been this way all through history. Therefore, tell me the dream, and I shall know that you can show me its interpretation. The Chaldeans answered the king and said, do not miss what he says here, because you need to understand this applies even now. This applies now in our lives, our world. There is not a man on earth who can meet the king's demand. There is nobody out here, I don't care who it is, I don't care what news channel you're watching to, what commentators you listen to, there isn't a single man out there right now that can solidly tell you what's really happening. They can't. No man can tell you. But here's the argument, and God proves it in this text. God can tell you exactly what's happening and why it's happening. Amazingly enough, everybody won't go listen to what God says about what's actually happening. They go listen to people who are telling you all they want to tell you. That's just literally manipulating and controlling your thought life away from peace, away from a sense of I'm okay, God's got this, into the arena of thinking and fear. No man's going to answer this question. Nobody alive on their own is going to be able to tell the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had and what it meant. These guys at least are wise enough to know that that's the case. Or at least in this point, they're not being honest enough to tell you that they have no control over what they're being asked to do. Think about that in reference to your world right now. For no great and powerful king has asked such a thing of any magician or enchanter or Chaldean. The thing that the king asks is difficult, and no one can show it to the king except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh. Again, I'll say it. If you think a man or a government structure is going to save you from the declining morality of society, you're sadly mistaken. There is no one that's going to rise to that level unless it's Christ himself. Because of this, the king was angry and very furious and commanded that all the wise men of Babylon be destroyed. He just basically said, okay, fine, you've answered the question for me. You can't do it. You all die. So the decree went out, and the wise men were about to be killed, and now they go, right? And they sought Daniel and his companions to kill them. So they're now going looking for everybody. Then Daniel replied with prudence. Arioch, so he declared to Arioch, the king's captain, what happened is Arioch got where they were, and now they're saying to him, why is the decree of the king so urgent? Then Arioch made the matter known to Daniel, and Daniel went in and requested the king to appoint him a time that he might show the interpretation to the king. Now, I find it fascinating, and you'll see this in your life, it happens, that in this case, the king is favoring Daniel, where he was ready to kill them instantly, the other guys. God will intervene on your behalf, especially if you stand on your convictions. Men will respect you even if they're going to kill you if you stand on your convictions. History has proven that. But look at it. Then Daniel went to his house. Notice what he does. He gets permission. He goes to his house and made the matter known to his other friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Ezra, his companions. and told them to seek mercy. Now, that word mercy there is an important word. It's seek mercy from God. The word there is like the word womb or the care of a mother. That's what that word is actually there. So they're not going to God as be a warrior. They're going to God as if we need you to protect us, to comfort us, to do what a mother would do in defending a child. So he goes, mercy from God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that Daniel and his companions might not be destroyed. I need to get some water if I could, please. Note what he's done, because you don't want to move past that. He has no idea what the king's dream is. He has no idea what the interpretation of the dream is because he doesn't know it. It would take a miracle, wouldn't it, to be able to properly navigate what the king had dreamed. And Daniel and these guys, to deal with the issue, didn't start complaining, thank you, sir, didn't start to complain and gripe about the government. Note that. What did they do in the crisis? They got together and they sought the mercy of God. Think. Because I know just by conversations with people and like I said, what I watched as I traveled, the average person around you is not doing that. Definitely not doing it enough. Instead, people have become more introverted, trying to save themselves instead of going to the source who has the ability to resolve the issue. Let me help you see it a little more. You all are alive right now in this room because God ordained you to be alive right now in this room. You're not dead from anything that can kill you, which is mass amounts of stuff. Driving is far more dangerous than COVID. You are alive because it is God's decree that you be alive. You didn't save yourselves. You just think you do. Cracks me up how many of those people thought they actually had control of their cars. No, they didn't. God was merciful. He's helping them do their stupid. But think about it. But see, proud people, arrogant people think they have the solution to everything. I get tired of arrogant people. I get tired of my own pride. Because you don't have the answers. You just think you do. And, if I was Satan, I'd sucker each and every one of you into thinking that you've got it figured out. I really would. Because in a matter of, boom, you're gone. It's not that hard. COVID's the least of your worries. Morality is your biggest worry. But society doesn't think so. They think God winks at sin. So look at it. The mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision. Now, that's not a dream. God literally shows him what the dream was. But he not only shows him what the dream is, he tells him what the dream is about. Then Daniel blessed God of heaven. Now, note his response to God. Daniel answered and said, blessed be the name of God forever and ever, to whom belong wisdom and might. Next, he changes times and seasons. There's your global warming. He removes kings and sets up kingdoms. That's the fall of collapse of nations and the growth of nations. That's also the taking out of a president and putting a president in. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells within him. To you, O God, my Father, I give thanks and praise, for you have given me wisdom and might, and have now made known to me what we asked of you, for you have made known to us the king's matter. You want to know what's going on your planet? That's who you talk to. You want to understand how you should live and respond? That's who you talk to. Let me just give you some thoughts that are in there. Now keep in mind that Daniel's actions represent his convictions. He immediately goes to God for the answer. There's a couple things he's got there. One is he now sees what only God knew. I really do believe that Nebuchadnezzar was not remembering his dream. It was just upsetting him. You ever had those kind of dreams where you wake up and you know you had a bad dream, but you can't really recall? You just can't. You just know it was a bad dream. You can only get bits and pieces of it. In this moment, Daniel is actually seeing it. Next thing he does is he worships. Then he gives you a list of thoughts that he has about God. Number one, he believes in God's wisdom. Now, think about that. He trusts that what God says, like I said the previous sermon, that what God says is actually right and true. And he doesn't question it. He trusts it. He believes God has the wisdom. He believes in God's power and authority, meaning his ability to control kingdoms. You need to know that. There isn't a single nation on this planet that is operating independent of God's hand. He may allow them to do things, but they will never step outside of the original plan that he has. It's not going to happen. It's like the illustration I've given before. It's an illustration, that's all it is. But it's like a ship going from point A to point B. The captain of that ship is absolutely in control of that ship, and it's going to go from point A to point B. You can walk around on the deck, you can throw things over the edge, you can do whatever you want on the deck, and it's not, as long as it's not interfering with the ship going from point A to point B. So in essence, that's how humans' lives are. God's going from point A to point B. You're moving around all over his ship, but he's not going to let you lower the sails unless it's okay. He's not going to let you alter the course unless he chooses to alter the course. That's the best illustration I've got for that. You're not going to, you can, you know, it was interesting, the Indian guy that I was talking to and what he said, he goes, we were talking about truth, and he said, the wonderful thing about truth is you can try all you want to redefine it, rewrite it, redesign it, restructure it, but it will always still be what truth was from the beginning. You're not going to alter the truth. You can't do it. Now, people are going to try and argue stupid arguments against that. I'm sorry. You cannot alter what is true unless it has been given the right to be altered. And sorry. If God says it's this way, it's the truth, it's that way. You can try and rewrite it all you want. I won't agree with you, and I'm not going to apologize for it. You want to try and tell me a male is a female and a female is a male? I'm sorry, I don't buy it. The genetic code itself will not support your argument. I'm not playing the game. I'm not going to play the game where they try to argue that homosexuality is an acceptable form of relationship. Sorry, I don't agree with it. You want to do that. That's between you and God. But for me, I agree with God's original design. I don't need to apologize for that. I'm not going to apologize for saying killing babies is murder. I'm not going to apologize for that. You know what I want to say to the people that want to support abortion? Go watch the videos of what the babies do when they go in to kill them and tell me that you're not involved in something that is heinously violent. When the baby grabs the finger or the instrument and holds on to it. Don't tell me that's okay. That's not okay. And I'm not going to apologize for it. The political left can tell me all day long that I'm a judgmental, unkind person and that I'm taking rights away from people. No, I'm not. I'm stating what God says. You got a problem with what I believe. It's God who said it. Your problem is with him. Think about it. We need to start standing up for truth and stop letting these muddlehead people push us around. I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian. Whether they like it or not, I follow Christ. You get the point? Look what these boys are doing. Throw me in a fire. Nebuchadnezzar, I'm not bowing down to your God. I'm not buying into this garbage that all these other people are buying into. I worship one God. I'm not going to bend to you because I'm going to be burned. Well, do you see the fear factor there? Do you see it? Do you see the manipulation and control? And you think I'm talking about vaccines. I'm talking about right and wrong, what God says and what God says is good and what is right versus what the world is saying is good and right. Stop apologizing. And the other thing I want to throw out, stop letting the jerks try to humiliate you and treat you like you're stupid. Because that's the oldest trick in the book. When somebody doesn't have a solid argument against your argument, they just mock you. It's the oldest trick in the book. Don't buy into that. Don't play into that. They'll treat you like you're stupid because they can't give you a good answer. I've been around the block too many times. And then they start spewing their stupid philosophies. And yes, I'm getting mad. In the middle of all of this, you see God has consistency. He controls history. You see God has precision. He obviously makes it very clear that the government council that Nebuchadnezzar had was worthless when it came to things that really mattered. Which the dream that gets shown to us is what happens throughout history in the rising and the falling of nations, to where the final part of the statue, which is the feet of clay and iron, which represents a false sense of strength, is smashed by the rock that's cut with no hands, which is Jesus. So far, all of the nations that are in the statue have existed. Anybody who studies history knows that those medals are talking about governments that existed that had major effect on society throughout history. Even Alexander the Great very, very well may have recognized it when he tried to go into Jerusalem. Having said that, though, there has to be a point in time where these people around you who reject Christ and the Word of God, the feet of clay and iron, that think they're so strong in their philosophical view of life that's contrary to God's, they're going to have to stand and face him someday. And when that all comes falling down, which it will, it's just a matter of when that all comes down, let's see how boastful and arrogant and proud they are then. Because, again, it's God who even changes the times and the seasons. I actually watched a program the other day where they have a map. Go look it up. I did. They have a map showing Antarctica without the ice on it. Go look at it. Go look how old the map is. This whole idea that I'm causing global warming, I'm sorry. I agree we don't take care of our planet. I agree we are trashing it. I agree we need to treat it with more respect. I agree with all of that. I also agree with Hebrews chapter 1, where God says he's folding up the world like a worn out garment. So don't tell me that things are out of his control, because I know what mankind wants to do. They want to make the rules on what's right and wrong. They want to control their environment, and they want to control creation itself, even the creation of you. And I was having a discussion with someone about the fact that they're moving in that direction very quickly. They see it as the evolution of mankind by man bringing about the evolution. They say, quote, the genetic code is now just a template for what we want. Okay. They forget who made it. So he gives him the answer. I'm going to shut down here. You can take that down, Alan. You see, these four guys recognize God's sovereignty, his mercy, and then they interact with it through prayer. I find it fascinating, even in my own life, how difficult it is to stop and pray and really pray. I mean, not just throw out a random, here's a prayer, I'm done. But literally sit and pray about your life and everything going on in your life and seeking the counsel of God. I find it fascinating how few of us do that. That we actually think that we cannot seek him in matters, that it's not necessary to seek him in matters that are out of our control. Instead, we go and do whatever we do and don't deal with it as being a situation that you should go to God and say, God, I can't do anything here. I can't. So what do I do, Lord? Almost inevitably, at least in my case, the answer is, you trust me. You understand that I've got you. You understand that whatever happens here, it's the right thing. I mean, I'm watching people literally lose the ability, like I said, to simply just live. Sir, could you please get in the elevator? I don't want to ride with you. Okay, all right. And you're scared of me. You're scared of me. And it's like, I understand that COVID has killed people. I also understand cars kill people, food kills people, cancer kills people, flu kills people. I can go down the line. I mean, there's so many things that kill you. Why are we not terrified about those? Because you haven't been told to be. Again, look at the stats. Your car is far more dangerous than COVID. And I hate to disappoint people. I wanted to say it to this one woman. If I light a cigarette here, lady, and you smell it, that mask is not stopping COVID. And now they know this. Now, I'm not telling you to be stupid, but I'm saying, why would you live in such fear that you can't even, you're afraid to breathe? I've talked to people in restaurants who say, I'm afraid to cough because somebody's going to think I got COVID. They just got allergies. But look at it. You've been told to be terrified. You've been told. So what do? Oh, I must be terrified. Wait a minute. What does God tell you? Why is it that we forget that he tells us to be bold, that he tells us to trust him, that he tells us to walk in faith, that he tells us that if we keep our eyes focused on him, it's amazing what we can do. It fascinates me. Go look at Paul's life. That guy got beat repeatedly, shipwrecked, I believe it was 3 times, survives the shipwreck, gets bit by a poisonous snake, and everybody goes, oh, there, he fell in judgment. He's going to die. And he didn't die. He finally got his head cut off by the Romans, more than likely. But do you think at any point in time, God did not have control of the situation, even in the midst of the most catastrophic situations? I've seen it. I've seen it. I've been in those moments. I've told you before. I've been in those moments where, my daughter Angela, my hands were tied. She was dying. They told me she was dying. You could see it. I've never seen anything like it. Her center muscle was just protruding. She was suffocating. I watched God, where a doctor said to us, there's nothing we can do, to my dad and I praying with the doctor over her, and in a matter of about 10 minutes, oh, she's starting to respond now. I've seen it. Alice Hutchinson, and I'm not into all these guys that are into all these miracles, signs, and wonders. I just know God does miracles. I know God is involved in my life on a daily basis. If you don't believe me, go study how your immune system works. Do you realize how many things are attacking your body every hour of the day? I mean, he's got it covered. Again, I'm not telling you to be stupid, but I am telling you, get over this idea that you can't trust God with your life. Stop it. Please stop. And then start living your life the way you were made to live it. Enjoying it. enjoying people around you, loving on people around you, not making enemies of them, but actually treating people with compassion and kindness. Live life, get off of this mindset that God is out of control here. Think I got preached at? Because I drove in a car for a week, stayed in hotels, stayed at a resort, went through a house built by the Vanderbilt king, looked at all the things that were there, all that had happened, all that was going on, and I just paid attention. There is such a big lie out there right now, and it's working. This church, when I started here, was running 50 to 60 people. COVID hit. Look how many are here now. Look at the loss. And this is not just our church. This is not just us. I drove through Big Springs, which is a place my wife and I used to take our kids down by Van Buren. And as we drove in, we used to stay there in cabins. There's only like 4 cabins left. The restaurant that's there, falling apart. It's dead. Because Van Buren was shut down for 2 years. It killed this area. But it's not just killed that, it's killing churches. It's dividing families. It's divided a nation. It's dividing the world. And we're sitting around, and as believers, we should be more inspired to step out and preach and teach the gospel message of Christ and what that love is that Jesus talks about and what that faith and hope is. And instead, we're going into our homes and sitting and hiding and getting comfortable watching church on TV because I don't have to deal with anybody now. There's no risk to me now. I'll just sit in my little hole. As a matter of fact, I'll order all my groceries online and I'll go pick them up. So I disengage totally from everybody. Because my goodness, I don't want to die. Well, I hate to disappoint you. I'm going to be 58 in October. I've maybe got, 20 more years? Maybe 10 good years? I'm going to die sometime. Why would I want to live like I'm going to die and not live like I'm alive? Why would, I can go on and on and on. I had an Aunt Agnes, great aunt. I was 13 years old, 14. We went to see her in California. She paid for our family to come to California when we were kids. And this woman had so much energy and was so alive. She wore me out when we went to visit her, but I'm not done with her. She has Parkinson's or had it. She's dead now, like my dad does. My Aunt Agnes got to the point to where she couldn't talk anymore. You know what she did? She'd grab a pen and paper, get on buses, write on the paper and say, "Hi, my name's Agnes. Would you like to go have lunch with me? My treat." That was my Aunt Agnes, my great Aunt Agnes. When my Uncle Mac was in the hospital dying because he had had so many heart attacks, and they asked her what she wanted to do, she said, "Let him go." And she went on with life. Now think about that. That woman had I get chills. She had such an influence on me. I only met her once. So answer it. What are you talking about? What are you doing with people? I got on an elevator and had a conversation with 4 people I don't know. Didn't know them, never see them again. I made them laugh. That was fun. I got on an elevator with a family, a young couple that came from Florida. They told me they come up there a lot to hang out. I got to know them in a span of a few seconds. I got to treat somebody kind. Instead of going, "Oh, please don't talk, don't touch me, don't say anything. I hope they don't talk to me. Don't breathe." Instead, I'm like, "Hey, who are you? What are you guys doing? Good to see ya." I'm done. Stop buying into the garbage that's coming out of the mouths of the people that say they're running this country. They're not running anything. If anything, they're running it into the ground. But that's okay, because God is ultimately the one in control. So if it happens that way, it needs to happen that way. And every Christian on this planet should be motivated to tell the people the truth that God has given us instead of shutting our mouths. Come on. I should have put a sign on my window when I was driving down those highways going, hey, smile. I'm not your enemy. I don't hate you. But instead, yeah, I gotta get out front. 80's not fast enough. I gotta go 90. Well, go 90. And then the cops pull over. I can't believe they're pulling me over. I didn't do that. I'm watching this on the highway. Just absolute stupid. I'm done. I really am done. I could go on though. I'm gonna leave here. I'm gonna go home to my house. I'm gonna look at my beautiful trees that are all around. My yard, I gotta mow it. I'm gonna enjoy looking at my yard after I mow it. I'm gonna enjoy the fact that I got a warm bed and that I've got food to eat, and it's gonna be chilly tonight, which makes you wanna cuddle, all of that stuff. I'm gonna enjoy this. And it's okay if you breathe on me. If I die, I die. I'm not gonna be afraid of some virus. I'm not gonna do it. But I'm not gonna be disrespectful of it either. Don't get me wrong here. It's like when I was a kid, I rubbed a poison ivy on my face to see if I was allergic to it. I didn't get it, but boy, wasn't that stupid? So don't go deliberately trying to get COVID. Be smart, but don't live like you're dying. Live. And if your economy goes in the toilet, it goes in the toilet. You've made it this far. I mean, come on. All right, let's pray ourselves out. Lord, thank you for Daniel in the Bible. Thank you for his friends. Thank you for their convictions. Lord, I pray that you would continue to teach us to trust you no matter what the circumstances are, no matter how bad it gets, that you teach us to learn to live in your glory. Lord, I pray for this ministry. I pray for the people in this church. I pray for the fact that we're getting ready to restart and redesign it. I pray that we would be effective. But more than anything, I pray that your will's done in this situation. However it goes, Lord, I know that I can trust you with the right decision. I pray that you give each and every one of us wisdom, that we learn to listen to what's not being said, that we learn to listen to what you're saying. We learn to shut down the things that are just lies and death. Teach us to become astute. Teach us to be people who live with a purpose. As only you can do. I pray that you're glorified this day. I pray that what was said was in line with your will. I pray that you encourage everyone to a deep relationship with you. Amen. Thanks for listening. Thanks for letting me get it off my chest.